Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining Healing Chronic Illness with Marley. Today we have a very special guest. I'm excited to introduce you to him. This is Dr. Mike, and we are going to be talking about all kinds of things here today. Dr. Mike Van Thielen is he has his PhD in holistic nutrition, and he is a mentor, a biohacking expert, best-selling author. He's been a TEDx speaker, which is pretty cool, as well as an international keynote motivational speaker, and happens to be a world record holder in swimming. He's involved in optimal health practices, anti-aging, regenerative medicine, sports performance, nutrition, supplementation, and biohacking for over 30 years. Dr. Mike, you are a very busy guy. Welcome to today's episode.
Thanks for having me, Marley.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of organically have a conversation like we're sitting down for a cup of coffee here. And
Sure.
so if you're listening in, you'll notice that he doesn't sound Canadian or American. So tell us, Dr. Mike, what's your story? Who's Dr. Mike?
Yeah, most people don't have an accent, have an idea where that accent's from, but it's from Belgium. I grew up in Belgium, and I'm keeping the accent, I
I
decided.
like
But
it.
um, I as a young kid, I was very competitive, and I think that kind of has me led to where I am too. I was, in elementary school, and I was the fastest runner. I was on a soccer team, the basketball team, and you name it. But I couldn't win the swimming because a good friend of mine was on the local swim team. And I don't really recall the details, but my mother tells me that I was very upset because I lost. And so the next day I came up with a solution. I joined the local swim team also. And that's
Hmm.
where I quote unquote found my passion for swimming. But I still joke about it. It's actually my worst sport, right? Because it's the only one that I lost. Anyways, but I think that competitiveness certainly something that kind of, brought me where I am today. In Belgium, did physical education first because I was into sports. I loved sports, but really what you're going to do with that degree, not much. So then I decided to do physical therapy afterwards. And that's how I came to the United States in 1997. I saved $400, packed the backpack and put my jeans on. Came to the United States, did some physical therapy first in outpatient hospitals, etc. But obviously it wasn't my calling. Decided to go back to school to the Florida College of Integrative Medicine, a 3-year program where I got my Doctor of Oriental Medicine, certified in homeopathy, homotoxicology, board certified in Chinese herbs, and all that good stuff. But after another 1,000 patients doing that kind of stuff, I really got a little bit frustrated because these applications are indeed less invasive than conventional medicine, meaning drugs, injections, and surgeries, but I really didn't get the long-lasting results I was hoping for either. So I really had to go back to basics, and that's when I decided to get my PhD in holistic nutrition, but I also started to look at Mother Nature because I felt that Mother Nature must have the truth about health. And
Right.
so I started looking at animals in the wild. And still today, I tell my patients to get a second opinion, but not from another doctor, but just simply ask yourself, what do animals in the wild do? And usually they have the truth or the solution right there.
Mhm.
So by combining that PhD in holistic nutrition and looking at Mother Nature and animals in the wild, I really got very confident in helping anybody. So today I have cancer patients, Parkinson's patients, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis patients, and on the other end, I work with top athletes and anything in between. So I basically help people get to that next level when it comes to dreams or goals, or overcome any disease by having a very holistic approach and by upgrading the body and the mind. Meanwhile, I've have been the CEO of a stem cell clinic from 2015 till COVID started.
Mhm.
And then when COVID started, obviously, we had to close the doors because we were non-essential. And that's when I really, had to think and sit down and what do I really want to do? And I really wanted to help more people. So I started doing more motivational keynote speaking, writing some more books, and reaching out to people to see if I could help them the non-conventional way. And usually we have kind of a 100% success rate with people that actually want to get better, want to be younger, want to turn back time, want to overcome a disease, or want to get to that next level. And so that's what I'm doing today.
That's an incredible journey, and I've got to absorb some of that because I want to sit down. I want to book a consult with you now. This is
Yeah.
awesome. So I love, let's talk about the observing animals in the wild. I've done some work with equine therapy, and I'm actually a bow hunter. And so I love to get out in nature, and when I'm sitting in a deer blind, just study the nervous systems of deer. And it's funny because polyvagal theory, they talk
Mhm.
about the fawn state for a good reason. So what are your takeaways, or what do you present to people as far as studying animal behavior as part of a holistic ability for us to uncover some things? Because animals are instinctive, and if we stayed in our instinctive selves
Yeah,
instead of educated and bombarded by following the rules, following the whole convergent path of the way that we think in higher education, we pull away from the instinctive things that our body naturally knows how to do, and we override our nervous systems with behaving a certain way, which obviously isn't great for us. So how do you present that
Yeah,
to
no,
people?
you hit it right on the head of the nail right there. So that's I mean, I always ask people so they think about it. What's the difference between animals in the wild and humans, right? And the answer is awareness. In other words, we humans, we have the freedom to choose our response to any given stimulus or situation, right? Animals don't. They have an instinct, and that's why they act according to Mother Nature. They act in
Right.
their best interest and in the best interest of their species, and that's why they don't suffer of any diseases that we do. If you really look at animals in the wild, there is no COPD or COVID or heart disease or neuropathy or
Hmm.
diabetes or anything like that, right?
Anxiety
And
and
so
depression as
you were
well.
right on. So because we have a choice, we have been accustomed to making the wrong choices over and over again, and that's why we find ourselves in this ill health situation. But luckily, we still have that same power, that same freedom to choose our response, to turn it all around and start making the right choices, and be healthy and be happy and find fulfillment in life. So, but like you said, it's a detriment that we have the choice, because due to our environments and the influences and the propaganda and the fact that most of us don't have any self-discipline and self-control anymore,
Hmm. Right.
because we choose short-term indulgences and pleasures over the real treasures of life, which are, of
Right.
course, health, wealth, and abundance, and living for service, right?
Right.
And so that's where we find ourselves in. And once people realize that, it's actually very simple to turn it around and make the right choices.
So do you do with your keynote speaking, is that some of the ways that you challenge people, is to become more self-aware, self-disciplined? Like if you were to give me a takeaway, and maybe that's part of us discussing your latest, I guess it's a book, the IZOD method
Yes, it's a book.
is a book. Okay, there it is. The IZOD method, Unleash Your Superpower. That's great book design. I love it. So unpack that a little bit more for people that are in the chronic illness community, or even here's what I know as far as brain optimization, because I actually work for a software company that makes neurofeedback systems, and it's about optimizing your brain health. So you can get to not just surviving anymore, but get to a level of what's on my bucket list. And I want to be better at what I want to be better at. And then you start living again and getting into that peak performance arena. Because obviously you probably work with high level achievers, but the principles, whether you're a high level achiever or somebody with chronic illness, can be the same. So let's talk about what those principles are. And you probably have them in your book, I would presume.
Yeah, well, of course, in the book there's a few foundations. I do have a course called the Limited Lab, and we talk about the 5 Ps. It's a P5 formula, and that's basically the different steps. And whether it's cancer or whether you're already an Olympic athlete, it doesn't matter. If you want to get to the next level, we do that through self-optimization, right?
Mhm.
Because if you're a track and field runner, I can't be your coach. I don't know enough about track and field. If you're an executive in insurance companies, I can help you there. I don't know anything about insurance or finances or whatever it may be. So the way I get you to the next level is through self-optimization, upgrading your body, your mind, and your life, right? And so I developed 5 steps in there. And the first 2 steps are your foundation. Number 1 is purpose, right? If you're not living your purpose and you're just going to a job to make money and come by day, you're never going to achieve your highest level because there's no passion and there's no drive. And you wake up in the morning, oh, I gotta get up, I gotta get to work, versus I get to get up, I get to do this, I get to accomplish that, right? And so most people fall in that first category. They're not living their purpose. So the first step is with all kinds of exercises and make sure that we identify your purpose, something that ignites fire in your belly, because only then obstacles become stepping stones and opportunities to reach your goals and your dreams. And if not, you're just going living day by day, being frustrated, being stressed, worry, fear, anxiety, and all those types of things, right? When you have a purpose, all those, negative emotions and those quote unquote mental conditions, they fall away. Because I discovered that during COVID, when a colleague of mine actually asked me to help screening patients for medical marijuana in the state of Florida here. And of course, all these people had anxiety, depression, PTSD, ADHD, and you name it. And I've quickly found that there's an underlying common cause. They don't have a purpose in life. And once you ignite that purpose or find that purpose, then suddenly there's no worry about tomorrow. There's no fear, etc. So purpose number 1. Then number 2 is plan. Once we find our purpose and we have a dream, we have a goal, let's put that down on paper. Not the details, not the how-tos, but what are the goals? What are the dreams? When can we realistically accomplish them? And we all heard the saying that when your dreams are not scary, they're not big enough. But if they are big enough, they're scary. And when they're scary, we feel overwhelmed and we think, oh, I can't attain those dreams. And that's exactly why we need a plan. So we can break that big, scary dream down into very small incremental steps. Let's say we want to achieve a goal in 5 years. Well, let's break it down year per year. And then the last year, month per month, week. And what do I need to do tomorrow? Which small incremental step can I take tomorrow that I find fulfillment in, that will me get one step closer to that big dream? So that's the plan. And so the purpose and the plan, that's your foundation. Without those, you're just going in circles and you're just going to find obstacles and you're just going to get, unmotivated and discouraged, and all that kind of stuff adds up. So purpose and plan is just a foundation that we need to put in place, that we need to agree on, that we need to cultivate in order for you to reach that highest potential. And then number 3 and 4 is basically what I call biohacking, upgrading, right? So number 3 is present moment, which means is we need to learn how to be in flow state, how to produce, how to be in the zone on demand, because most of us think that being in the zone is just for athletes, and that's totally not true. It's a skill that all of us can acquire, because it's in the zone and in the flow state that we produce, because we all know the statistic that we produce 80% of what we produce, we do in 20% of the time, right? So you can see we waste a lot of time. We don't want to do that. We don't want to be distracted. And today with social media and phones and all the kind of stuff, we're too distracted and we can't get things done. We're procrastinating and we simply can't get things done. So we need to learn how to turn on and off a knob that gets us into the zone, gets us focused, and gets us producing. So that's step number 3, being in the present moment. Step number 4 is the power of biohacking, or the power of upgrading the body and the mind. So it makes sense that no matter what you do, if you're in better health, are you going to perform better? Yes. I mean, nobody will dig, whether you're an artist, whether you're a musician, whether you're an executive, whether you're an athlete, whether you're just somebody that works and wants to get to that next level. If you're in better health, mentally, and also, of course, in your body, you're going to perform better, right? You have more energy, you have more clarity, etc. So we need to upgrade that body and the mind. And upgrading the body obviously has to do with health. And I have 7 foundations within that. And one of those 7 foundations to upgrade your body is upgrading the mind. And I always start with upgrading the mind. I'm glad you brought up that the mind is so important, because we all know that the mind controls the body. It controls disease and health, number 1, right? So without the mind being on board, we're not going to cure or we're not going to get rid of any disease, no matter what we do. So the mind needs to be on board. And number 2, the mind is the blueprint to the future, to your success or failure. So we really need to work on our belief system, when we need to upgrade our mindset. And because here's what I believe. I believe that our spirit choose our body for a very specific purpose. And our mind is there to try to make sense of it and allow us to live our full potential and fulfill that purpose. But why is that not happening in the vast majority of us? Because we have an ego. And
Right.
the ego operates in our conscious mind, right? And our conscious mind only stores information that we pay attention to. So if you're listening to this podcast, or you're reading a book or watching TV, that's information that's stored in your conscious mind. But all the other information, which is the vast majority, because we on average are bombarded with 14,000 messages per day, each one of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the vast majority of information is, stored in our unconscious mind. So when I say upgrading our mindset, what it means is we need to learn to manage all the faculties of the unconscious mind, because that's
Right.
where our potential lies. That's where we connect with the universe. That's where we can connect with all the resources and put our ego aside.
Right.
So those are skills that we need to learn, because that's where the true potential is. And once we work on that and on our belief system, let's say you want to swim a world record or run a world record, or let's say you're a cancer patient and you want to overcome that cancer. We need to get away from the past. We need to get away from, if you're a patient and you're diagnosed with something, that diagnosis, that labeling is
Right.
detrimental itself, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
consciously or unconsciously, that word cancer always hangs there.
Right.
And so that's the frequency you put out there. And obviously the doctor's going to be correct. If the doctor says you're going to die in 1 year of cancer, and you believe that, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
So what I do with those types of clients is obviously work on the belief system and get rid of the labeling. Don't think negative thoughts. Don't think
Mm-hmm.
the diagnosis. Don't speak it and be
Right.
pulled forward by the future. So we're gonna use tools like gratitude journaling, manifestation, visualization,
Right.
meditation, breath work, to do what? To project a bright future where we overcome the cancer,
Mm-hmm.
where we see our grandkids grow up, where we
Mm-hmm.
continue to play golf and hike, or whatever it is that we want to do. And so when we change our mind that way and we think and speak that way, then that's exactly what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so important to start with the mind, because the mind needs to be on board. The mind
Right.
needs to be prepped, so everything else easily falls in place and follows that blueprint that
Right.
we created with our minds. And so that's number 4, number 3 and 4, 3 present moment, 4 upgrading the body and the mind. And then P number 5, because it's 5 P's, is the power routine. Once we have all those 4 things, then we're going to pick the elements that work for a certain individual, and we're going to customize a daily routine. I like to call it a power routine. That doesn't have to be hours long. It could be only 5 or 10 minutes. A daily routine that that person can count on each and every day to get one step closer to overcoming the cancer, to swim a world record, to
Yeah.
get to that next level, or whatever it is that you want to achieve. And so that's the P5 formula, and that's the formula I follow, whether you're an Olympic athlete or whether you're a cancer patient, anybody
Mm-hmm.
in between, and customize that power routine that works for them.
So do they those are the 5 Ps. Is there a outline to follow? Is this something that somebody, I mean, obviously they need to buy your book, but what would be those incremental objectives that number 5 would include, for example? Is it diet? Is it breath work? It's all of
Yeah,
those things.
it's
Yeah.
all of
Community
those things.
and
Yes,
yeah. Okay.
all of those
So
things.
anything that can continue to put you on a trajectory in the right direction, because all of those things are wins. All of those things affect our firing of our neurons and our thought
Yes.
processes completely. So I love all of this. It's packaged very, very, very well. So that's the IZOD method. Let's talk about, you have some you have a book on overcoming fibromyalgia. And that was one of my diagnoses too. And if you listen to any of my past podcasts, I say that they're all labels, because I could probably give you 30 different diagnoses between all the different doctors that I've
Sure.
seen over the years. And to me, they're all labels. So Fibromyalgia is just another one of those mystery illnesses that is more symptomatic of underlying other issues. And there is such a strong psychosomatic connection with, fibromyalgia. It's chronic pain, chronic fatigue. Again, it's the same thing as COVID long haul. It's just got a new name now. So, what are the principles that you share in, and give us the name of that book as well regarding fibromyalgia?
Um, yeah, it's called Fibromyalgia in Remission, and it's DIY, do it yourself.
Mm,
That's the name of the book. You can get it on Amazon or through my website. I also can give you a link later that you can post for your listeners,
I'll do
because I
that. Yeah.
used to make I think it's 12 YouTube videos, and they were live in Australia and they were sold in Australia. But right now I'm not charging for them, so they're 100% free to your listeners.
Okay.
And it's a series of 12 videos on YouTube, and I'll be glad to give you the
That'd
link
be awesome.
that you
Thank
can
you.
post it, and it's totally free, and it's basically the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
so strategies to do it yourself,
Yeah,
recover
to
from
get rid of it
fibro.
yourself. Yeah, yeah. And it's mostly, really focused on fibro. But like you said, it's another label. Conventional medicine looks at very narrow, very specific, but they never look at the body as a whole, right? So we just talk about the mindset. That's obviously going to be very important. But when I used to work with fibromyalgia patients, again, number one, there's always some kind of event that triggered something,
Yeah.
whether it was a physical event like a car accident, or whether it was a loss in the family,
Mm-hmm.
and they got stuck in the grieving period,
Right.
or there's always, when you ask where it started, there's always something.
Yeah.
There's an event, or they started menopause, or there was a partial hysterectomy, there's something with the hormones. There's
Mm-hmm.
always an event, right?
Yep.
But the event passed, so what are we going to do about now, right? But
Mm-hmm.
fibromyalgia is very misunderstood, because if we dissect the words, fibro means fibrin, so your body's producing too much fibrin, and myalgia is muscle pain, and too much fibrin causes muscle pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, what causes your body to produce too much fibrin? Well, number one, cortisol, excess cortisol, and cortisol is
Mm-hmm.
our stress hormone. So again, if an
Right.
event causes too much stress, then your body's gonna produce too much cortisol, and too much cortisol gonna create too much fibrin, and fibrin is like almost like scar tissue that
Mm-hmm.
sets itself. So if this is a muscle, and scar tissue sets itself in it, then you're gonna impair the circulation in those tissues, and when you impair the circulation, you're gonna create hypoxia. And so you get hypoxic pain. There's lack of oxygen in the tissues because there's a settlement of fibrin. And so when you touch a fibromyalgia patient, no matter where, they're going to go, ouch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hypoxic pain, but it's caused by too much fibrin. And so the number one reason is too much cortisol. So
Mm-hmm.
that's stress. It's a stress response. So in
Mm-hmm.
order to fix fibromyalgia, we got to go back to the stress response.
Right.
So if it's been an emotional or a mental trauma, we might need to seek help from somebody that can help
Mm-hmm.
you resolve that trauma, right?
Right.
When it's a physical trauma, we need to resolve that physical trauma, or we need to, and simultaneously, we may need to learn how to manage that daily stress.
Right.
If it comes from your spouse, maybe you need to leave your spouse. I'm just joking here, but it's serious at the same time, right? We got to
Right.
identify where these stressors come from and get that cortisol down. If the cortisol is at normal levels, that means it stops producing that excess fibrin, and the
Mm-hmm.
fibromyalgia goes away. The other second one that really increases fibrin in the body is estrogen dominance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you produce more estrogen compared to its counter hormones, progesterone, testosterone, etc., then you're in estrogen dominance, and estrogen again produces fibrin. So we may need to check our hormone levels and make sure there's not too much estrogen or estrogen dominance in our body. And then obviously we can manage that with bioidentical hormones, or if estrogen is too high, we can take a supplement DIM, or avoid estrogenic laden foods and snacks and things that
Right.
we eat. So it comes back to diet. So there's certain things that we can do. And again, a simple lab test, we can find out about cortisol and estrogen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of the things, what is true fibromyalgia, but it may not be happening in your case if you're diagnosed with it, because again, they throw that term around.
Yeah.
And it may not be true fibromyalgia. It may be a chronic pain syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
myofascial pain syndrome. They got so many other
Yeah.
terms.
They all
Uh,
kind of They all play together, and it's all comes down from what I've seen consistently is an issue with the autonomic nervous system. Typically, it's like the hypothalamus just kind of goes offline,
Yeah.
and that's what instructs your body on what hormones, whether they're stress hormones or sex hormones, on what to do. And so, yeah, I've always heard that that's more of the breaker box in your brain. The
Yes.
hypothalamus just kind of goes offline, and you got to get that back online again by removing those stressors. And one of the things that I've been preaching to my people about is regulating stress and allowing stress to be a good thing instead of seeing stress as the silent killer that, you go to the doctor and they're like, well, the reason behind all your symptoms is stress. Now
Yeah.
go home and don't be stressed. So we're all
Now you're
scared
even
of
more
stress.
stressed. Now you're
Yeah.
even more.
And so it makes you more scared of stress, but finding a way, just like working out, getting stress to be good for you and to regulate. And so much of it is about learning about self and learning self-regulation and learning, what's your window of tolerance to stress and how can you get it to work for you.
Yeah.
So
You need to
with
yeah, go
your
ahead.
IZOD program, everything that you're saying about the 5 Ps, but it goes completely in line with that same thing about having purpose. And I'm a Christian, so I look to scripture and it says without vision people perish. And we need to be working for something bigger than ourselves, and leaning into that a lot. And we need community and we need people. I might even add a P for people in your program because um what
It's
I've
actually
seen
part of plan.
part of the
The
plan.
second
Yeah,
point is plan, right? Because as part of the plan, I tell people you cannot be the best version of
by
yourself by
yourself.
yourself.
Yeah,
You need to surround yourself with what I
right.
call a team of experts and
Mm-hmm.
identify who that is or what the qualities are that you need.
Mm-hmm.
And usually I don't believe when people say you need to work on your weaknesses. You need to know what your weaknesses are,
Mm-hmm.
but I also encourage people to continue to work on their strengths and surround yourself with people that are
Mm-hmm.
strong where you're weak,
Right.
right? So
Good.
you need to create that community. You need to get those
Mm-hmm.
people on your team.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't realize that many times, but the analogy with athletes is easy to understand, right? If you have an athlete that goes to the Paris Olympic Games in a few months or next month, all right,
Yeah, it is coming up.
next month. I mean, think about it. Let's say it's track and field. They have a track and field coach. They have a strength coach in the gym. They have a dietitian. They have a
Mm-hmm.
mental coach. They
Yep.
probably have a functional medicine coach for their hormones, etc. And then
Mm-hmm.
they have their social support system, their
Mm-hmm.
family, their friends, etc. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, how many people are involved? They cannot do it by themselves, right? And
Yep.
so when you're going through true life, even though you may not be an athlete, but when you go to work and you want to accomplish things, don't do it by yourself. Start
Mm-hmm.
thinking about who do you need? Where am I weak?
Right.
Do I need to complement myself, work
Mm-hmm.
synergistically to reach my goals? So yes,
Mm-hmm.
you're 100% right. People is part of the
People.
P of
Yeah.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me. Actually, I am good friends with the Team USA main chaplain who's been there. Gosh, she's been doing it. She was in the 68 games. But anyway,
Wow. Yeah.
Madeline Mims, incredible human.
Mhm.
She's Team USA track and field champion. I got to call her up and check in with her. And that's another thing too that I think is really key. And you said is like purpose is like, even if we only have so much to offer, knowing that there's still purpose in us, um, paying it forward and being a
Yes.
part of something and not just being a consumer, but be a contributor for other people as well. And I imagine that's kind of why you're where you're at.
Yeah, it's, people, I give people simple examples. It's right, even when you happen to be at a supermarket and it happens to be you're opening a door for somebody, right? Who are you doing the most favor, that person
Mm-hmm.
or you or yourself? Yourself, because yes, you help that person, but how do you feel immediately
Yeah.
after? You feel great, and that's simply open a door. What if you could do something substantial on a daily
Mm-hmm.
basis, helping people, living for service? You're helping those people, but you're helping yourself a lot more than you're helping those people, because that's what makes us whole.
Right.
That's where you find fulfillment. That's where you find happiness. That's where you find, as you said, purpose.
I love it. It's so
Yeah.
good. Well, I know our time is kind of short because you're on to the next thing. And as am I, but I will put your links up, Dr. Mike. Do you have anything as far as what we can do? Oh, you know what? I did want to back up. What are you seeing as the global trends in healthcare? I did want to touch on that because I
Yeah.
know that you have done some biohacking conferences, and there's so much more demand for functional med, root cause medicine, and all of the integrative things that we can be using. What are you seeing through your travels and working with different people is like, where are we going? Are we
Yeah.
coming back to Mother Nature and the natural state? Because I mean,
Well,
that's where
let's
we
hope
should
so.
be.
Let's hope so. Health is very basic. That's why I mentioned the animals in the beginning. And if we just stick
Right.
with our basics and our instincts and use our common sense and not be
Mm-hmm.
distracted by short-term indulgences and have a little bit of self-control,
Mm-hmm.
we easily can be 120 years old and be able
Mm-hmm.
to do what a 50-year-old does. I believe that that is doable, right? So that's number one. But I think, yes, obviously, more and more people starting to be aware that conventional medicine is not the solution,
Right.
right? And they are starting to reach out for more and more alternative practitioners, functional medicine doctors, coaches, and mentors, mostly because I think a lot of people got woken up by COVID and what happened
Mm-hmm.
there. Today even Dr. Fauci has to answer many questions,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So
Yep.
so let's not go into politics, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you can read my mind. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the COVID era. But at the other end, we see that education,
Right.
going to school, going to college, more and more people are starting to be aware it's useless. It's a
Mm-hmm.
scam. You don't learn
Yep.
anything. It's a business.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting those student loans. It's get you in debt, and you come out and you don't know anything. And all
Yep.
the information you get there is propaganda, and it's not a skill.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the past, we didn't have a choice. That's where we get our
Mm-hmm.
degrees. But now, with the
Mm-hmm.
internet, with
Yep.
AI, with all these online learning platforms,
Mm-hmm.
when you want a skill, you find the best ones in the world that have the experience and the skill, and you can learn it in days, in weeks, in months, and
Right.
not in 5 years. For a few hundred or a few $1,000s,
Mm-hmm.
you can be proficient in something very quickly. And so that's where this is heading. We're going to get away from universities and colleges, and we're
Mm-hmm.
going to get to online colleges and education and platforms where the experts in their niche can
Right.
teach you what you want to know in a very short time,
Right.
and much, much better and much, much cheaper. And then I think that's where that's going. And especially with health and mental health and all
Mm-hmm.
these types of things, it's available,
It is. It is available. Have you got some favorite courses or certification programs that you would recommend? Have you built a course yourself?
Yes, I've built a course. It's called the Limitless Lab. We talked about it, the 5P.
Okay.
So it's a virtual 12-week online course
Okay.
that we do to actually do what we talked about today is get you from A to B, right? Whether it's
Mm-hmm.
from cancer to no cancer, or from an American record to a world record, or from,
Right.
a certain level in your company to the next level if you want to outwork everybody else and get to the next level. That's what I can do. I'm the coach. I'm standing by you. I'm making sure you reach your goals and your dreams. So we do that in a virtual online training format, or I have mentorship programs. So I have a lot of one-on-one people
Mm-hmm.
also that I help.
You got your hands busy with a lot of things, but you sound like you're very effective with your time. So, what do you do on your downtime to recalibrate and make sure that you're not being too distracted to your calling? What does Dr. Mike do?
Dr. Mike likes to go spend time outdoors. So in
Mm-hmm.
the weekend, I do a lot of hiking. I'm not too far from the beach, so I go walk barefoot for a few miles because I
Yep.
want to ground and get that excess energy into Mother Earth, right?
Yep.
I swim. I like to go on the boat, so I like to spend time outdoors and reconnect. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, on a daily basis, I gotta do the same thing that I'm preaching. So I gotta do
Right.
my breath work. I gotta get myself from sympathetic into parasympathetic. We talked about that people need tools to manage their stress.
Right.
And so there's many tools out there, and you got to figure out what tool works from you. So for me to get from sympathetic in parasympathetic, I do a reset breath. It takes
Mm-hmm.
1 minute, and it brings me from sympathetic straight into parasympathetic. And if you have a tool that can do that, then you're in control of your stresses, right?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. And do you have your TED talk, you do go over the breath work as well. So I did
That's right.
I did
Yes.
pull that up. Yeah,
It was
just the
about being in the
essentials.
present moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. you're preaching to the choir here. It's everything that I do. Anybody who comes by my clinic, we talk about all these same concepts as well. So you'll have to
Great.
come by and
Yeah, I
we'll
have to
connect.
because I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm
We
there
live
every week.
we're like 90 minutes apart. Isn't that
Yes,
funny? Small
yes,
world, huh?
yes. We gotta connect for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mike, for being with us today. And I will catch my tribe next time. God bless you on your pathway to healing.